On the dendrites, the receptor protein opens, decreasing resistance for Na+ and allowing Na+ to move into the cell, depolarizing the dendrites. This causes the dendrite membrane to become more positive, called the receptor potential. This positive current flows to the portion of the axon we are considering and causes the membrane potential to change from the resisting membrane potential of -70 to a more positive value of -55. The more positive membrane potential of -55 starts to repel the positively charged activation gates of the voltage sodium and voltage potassium channels. This membrane potential is called threshold. The specific structure property function of the voltage sodium channels allows it to react more quickly than the voltage potassium channels. The positively charged activation gates of the sodium voltage channels are repelled and the channel opens. The voltage sodium is now in the open position. This decreases the resistance to sodium movement. Sodium enters the cell down its electrochemical gradient through the voltage sodium channels. There are many more voltage sodium channels compared to leak channels, so sodium flux through the voltage sodium overwhelms the flux of sodium and potassium through the leak channels, and the membrane potential gets more positive very quickly. The voltage sodium inactivation gate has a high affinity for the open voltage sodium pore. In about 0.5 milliseconds at +40 membrane potential, the voltage sodium inactivates. The voltage sodium is now in the inactivated position. This cell increases the resistance to sodium movement. Sodium stops entering the cell. The specific structure property function of the voltage potassium channel causes it to react more slowly. About half a millisecond after the threshold signal at -55 membrane potential, the positively charged activation gates of the voltage potassium are repelled and the channel opens. This decreases the resistance to potassium movement. Potassium exits the cell down its electrochemical gradient through the voltage potassium. There are many more voltage potassium channels compared to leak channels, so potassium flux through the voltage potassium overwhelms the flux of sodium and potassium through the leak channels, and the membrane potential gets more negative/less positive very quickly. As the cell reaches resting membrane potential, the less positive membrane potential of -70 stops repelling the positively charged activation gates of the voltage sodium and voltage potassium channels. The specific structure property function of the voltage sodium channel allows it to react more quickly than the voltage potassium. The positively charged activation gates of the voltage sodium come down and push the ball and chain out of the pore. The voltage sodium is now reset into the closed position. As the voltage sodium went from inactivated to closed, there is no sign in resistance and no change in sodium flux. The specific structure property function of the voltage potassium channel causes it to react more slowly. About a half a millisecond after reaching resting membrane potential, the positively charged activation gates of the voltage potassium come down and the channel closes. This increases the resistance to potassium movement. Potassium stops exiting the cell. With all of the voltage sodium and voltage potassium closed, the ion flux through the leak channels take over, changing the membrane potential. The membrane potential slowly drifts to resting membrane potential and then stays there. During return to rest, the flux of sodium into the cell is greater than the flux of potassium out of the cell because of the increased electrochemical gradient of sodium. During rest, it's 160 millivolts, and during return to rest, it's 170 millivolts, which would increase its overall concentration gradient compared to the potassium gradient.
So the voltage-gated sodium channel is unable to be inactivated. However, the voltage-gated potassium channel is still able to open as normal. These opposing effects between the voltage-gated sodium and voltage-gated potassium channels will cause the graph to plateau at around -30 instead of reach its threshold to start decreasing.
If the activation gate for the voltage-gated potassium channel is less positive, the threshold for its opening would be at a higher membrane potential, which would not affect the voltage-gated sodium channel, but once it reaches the plus 40, because of the long latency period of the voltage potassium channel, it would kind of plateau for a little bit. And then once that opens up, it would start to repolarize, but it wouldn't reach as low of a internal membrane potential because it deactivates again at a higher internal membrane potential.
In the fourth mutation, the sodium potassium pump increases the sodium concentration in the extracellular fluid to 300 millimolar. This would increase the concentration gradient for sodium inside and outside of the cell, causing sodium to enter the cell at a greater rate. This would cause a faster getting back to rest stage and a quicker repolarization.